This video is all about honesty. To keep it simple, I thought it'd be a whole lot of fun to go to Parfumo.net, where I log all of my fragrance wearing and have done so for the past 7 years, and check my most worn designer fragrances of all time. And I got kind of a surprising list, because not only does Parfumo tell me what I've worn when I wore it, it also tells me how many times I've worn it, and it tells me how long it's been since I last wore it. So I'm going to give you guys all the facts in this video. You're going to see there's going to be a lot of fragrances that I love, that I even talk about still from time to time, that maybe it's been a while since I've worn it. And what does that actually mean? It just means that I can appreciate fragrances that I've worn a lot, even if I'm not currently wearing them. While fragrance is very, very functional for me in my life, I also do appreciate it for the art. Even if I'm not wearing a fragrance actively, I might be spraying it on paper or smelling it from the atomizer from time to time, just to enjoy it for myself. I'm not going to be talking about these fragrances all that much, because many of them you've already heard me talk about or others talk about. You probably already have some of these, so I'm not going to be breaking down the scents of these fragrances. This is more about the context of my wearing and what appeals to my tastes, and a little bit of history behind what I've been wearing in the designer realm. And a little disclaimer, there's more than 10 fragrances in this video because we have a few ties. Just so you know, there's at least 15 or something like that. So let's dive right into it. At the 10th spot, but not the 10th fragrance, because there's going to be more than 10. I've worn this 14 times, and I think I got it maybe 2 years ago, and it's been about 6 months since I actually gave it a full wearing. Even though I've talked about it since that time, I haven't actually worn it a ton since, but I've worn it a lot before. This is Dior Homme 2020. This is one of my favorite versatile fragrances, simple but not basic. I'll be getting more and more wear out of this as the years go on, but it's been a little while. My focus has been going towards other things, other newer fragrances that are coming onto my radar. But that is Dior Homme 2020. We have 2 fragrances at the 9th spot, both with 15 wearings. L'Homme Ultime from YSL is the first one up here. And the last time I wore this was actually a month ago. It was pretty recently. I just felt like wearing it, and I'm so glad I did. I love it. And it actually was the inspiration for a video that I did recently. So I think if I hadn't have worn this fragrance, then I probably wouldn't have done that video.
Butterfly effect is real.
Discontinued, but beautiful stuff. And the second one I've worn 15 times, but it's been about 11 months since I've actually worn it, is Prada Rossa Carbon. It is one that I enjoyed a lot in the past. Again, as you can see, don't wear it all that much anymore because it doesn't really interest me, but it is super versatile. It's super functional. Anyway, that's Prada Rossa Carbon. And I made a mistake. There's actually 3 fragrances in this 15 wearing spot. And this one, it's been 3 years since I've worn this. I haven't even talked about it all that much over the past few years. I may have talked about it once or twice within the last year. It is a beautiful fragrance. It is discontinued, and it comes from Valentino. This is the original Uomo Acqua. Kind of a fresher, more aromatic take on the original DNA. It wears light, it wears subtle, but it has a beautiful elegance to it. I do like to wear it on a hot day out when I'm going to dress up a little bit more, but as you can see, it's been some time. I've had other fragrances that fill this role coming onto my radar and taking my interest, but it's still wonderful stuff. Okay, we're on to the 8th spot. This is another 3-way tie, all with 16 wearings apiece. Now, I last wore this fragrance a year ago. This is a total classic from the 1990s, Tommy Hilfiger For Men. It's just fresh, very simple, borderline basic, but I have nostalgic connection with this one. That's why I like it. That's why I have it. Even though I don't wear it a ton, it does remind me of simpler times, and scent can be very powerful for that. Anyway, that's Tommy For Men. Now, I have not worn this fragrance in 5 years. This bottle that I'm going to show you is my second bottle, but I didn't finish the first bottle. This is Prada L'Homme. About 5-6 years ago, I was getting most of my wearings out of this, and it's obviously been 5 years since I've actually reached for it. I had a bottle that I actually wore probably a good 1/8 of, I don't know, I don't remember the math, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was more than I've gotten out of this bottle. I ended up selling that off because I was purging at the time, and it was one that I was not really reaching for. I decided to get it back because I did miss it, and I wanted to have it for reference purposes, but I have yet to... You know what? There is a dent in this bottle. I must have been wearing this within the past couple years. I haven't had it that long. I don't know when. I must have forgotten to log it. Anyway, I take back what I said. It hasn't been 5 years since I've worn this. We discover things here on camera, guys. I told you we were going to be honest here. This is raw. This is vulnerable. You're along for the ride. I hope you enjoy it. Prada L'Homme It's good. It's super hyped. One of the most quintessential clean fragrances you can buy. Good stuff. And I last wore this fragrance just 3 days ago. I do consider this to be a modern masterpiece. I think this DNA will be around for some time. It is very special. Although it's very appealing, it is a little different from the rest of what we could call mainstream fragrances for men. Dolce & Gabbana The One. This is the Eau de Parfum. As I've said before, I had the Eau de Toilette for some time when I started my channel. Gave that a lot of wear, talked about it a lot. Said I would never need the EDP because it was strong enough for me. It went with the Purge because I guess I just stopped wearing it. And then I missed the DNA, but I said, you know what? I'm going to use this opportunity to get a clean slate and just get the EDP and see how the wearing experience is. And it is superior for me, but totally subjective. They're both great. The One, Eau de Parfum, still my favorite out of the entire collection. Even all the new stuff, it's fine. This is still king. At the 7th spot, we have Dior Homme. This was the 2011 reformulation, which is a little different from the original 2005 version. I have a colorful past with this. When I first tried it, I could not stand it. I could not understand how a man would want to smell like this. I had a lot of growing up to do, and I did that. It only took me about a year to come back to it and realize this is an absolute masterpiece. I cannot believe I didn't like it, but I'm glad I like it now. I bought it on a cruise ship at the fragrance store on the ship back in 2017. I've had it ever since. I've worn it 17 times, but it's actually been 2 years since I've worn this. I'll be honest with you guys. I don't wear it a ton these days because my wife, Grace, is still coming around to Iris. And we do spend a lot of time together, and I don't want to be wearing a fragrance that's going to be all up in her face that she doesn't like. I would prefer to wear it on days when I don't see her that much, which is not all that often, which I'm grateful for. But we've been together for about 3 years. So I was wearing it a little bit, but then up to 2 years ago, I was like, okay, she's not crazy about it, but she's coming around to Iris. So I'll keep coming back to it. I will give it some more wearing, but I will be talking about it nonetheless because I know it very well. It is an absolute masterpiece. It deserves to be talked about still to this day, even though it is a little bit hard to find outside of Europe. So that's Dior Homme. Incredible fragrance. At the 6th spot, the last time I wore this was 2 months ago, and the time before that was probably 5 or 6 years because I got rid of it and I didn't have it for a long time until I got it back recently. Did a whole video about that. You can check it out here. This is Dior Sauvage, the Eau de Toilette. I've actually worn this 18 times. I used to wear this at least once a week for the time I had it. And for those of you with large collections, if you're wearing any fragrance every week, then that is a very functional fragrance in your wardrobe and or you really, really enjoy it. I really enjoyed this for some time. It did get boring to me, which is why I got rid of it. I wanted to get it back for review and reference purposes and nostalgic purposes. It had basically come out around the time I started my channel. One of my first dedicated reviews was on it. I just have a lot of memories with it. So may not be getting a ton of wear out of it these days, but I'm glad I have it. I'll wear it here and there. That's Dior Sauvage Eau de Toilette. And tied for Dior Sauvage with 18 wearings. It's been about 2 years since I've actually last worn this as well, but I have talked about it a little bit since, and I will continue to, and I will get some more wearing. In fact, probably this summer. I've been thinking about it over the past month or so. This is Guerlain L'Homme Ultime Cologne, discontinued, supposedly re-released under a new name, under this bottle here, which I don't remember the exact name. I haven't tried it yet. I hear it's pretty much the same with a few minor differences. So if you did not get a chance to try this, I think this will be just fine. This was a total accident. I meant to blind buy the original L'Homme Ultime from an eBay seller many years ago. They sent this by mistake. I said, well, I might as well try it. I loved it from first spray. I did a review on it and I've been really enjoying it ever since. But again, other things have kind of taken my interest. But you see the little dent in this bottle. I've been wearing it. Guerlain L'Homme Ultime Cologne. Now the top 5, no ties here. At the 5th spot with 26 wearings, it's been 3 years since I've worn this. I have talked about it a little bit in the past few years, but kind of lives in the past for me. This was my first designer fragrance pickup from a store when I started my channel. I fell for this at first sniff. I had to buy it right then and there at that Macy's, even though I could have got it cheaper online, but I didn't know at the time. YSL L'Homme. Again, I have such great memories with this. It is such a foundational part of this channel, but I don't really wear it that much anymore, and that's okay. I still love it. I still appreciate it. I still remember my memories with it. I'll never forget when I first smelled it. I still think it's a beautiful fragrance, and I think it functions perfectly for what it is. This is something to wear casually or semi-elegantly when you just need it for 5-6 hours. Honestly, that's all I need it for. It doesn't need to be any stronger than that, because this profile just lends itself to be a little bit more subtle, a little bit more gentlemanly and refined rather than loud and rambunctious. And if you need more longevity, then this may not be the tool for the job. There's other fantastic fragrances out there that will last longer, even though they don't smell like this, but special stuff. At the 4th spot is a fragrance I no longer own. I haven't owned this fragrance in at least 5 years. For the time that I had it, I wore it 28 times. And I did enjoy it, but ultimately it wasn't moving me when it came time to move fragrances out of the collection. I'm like, I don't need this anymore. And it's Bleu de Chanel Eau de Parfum. I wasn't wearing it, so that's why I got rid of it, but I do still appreciate the scent. I may or may not be reacquiring it. I've been thinking about getting the Parfum instead, so I might do that relatively soon, and I'll just live with that for a while, because I don't have a ton of Chanel in my collection, and I'm waiting on them to give us something new and different for men. In the meantime, Bleu de Chanel Classic Collection will be around for a long time. You get it. At the 3rd spot with 32 wearings. For a period of time, and maybe even still kind of to this day, my channel was known for this fragrance. You're not really going to find it in any videos these days, but if you go back, you will find it mentioned a lot. But it has been 3 years since I've worn it. I'm going to keep it forever, and I might end up pulling it out on some summer night this season, or maybe even wait till the fall and bust it out. But this is John Varvatos Vintage. I'll never forget when I went to a Sephora after seeing a review on this and smelling it and being blown away. I was like, whoa, this is so refined. This is so smooth. I can't believe this is in a designer bottle. What a beautiful blend. If you haven't smelled this one yet, it's still on the market. You can still find it, I think, pretty inexpensively online. But go into your nearest store and try it. This stuff is special. Again, I will have it forever, even if I don't really talk about it all that much. But it stood the test of time. It was never purged. I never thought about getting rid of it. John Varvatos Vintage. 33 wearings from this gem. This night out, sexy, seductive, alluring designer gem of a fragrance that took the community by storm when it was super hyped by a certain reviewer. This is La Nuit de L'Homme from Yves Saint Laurent. Now, it's been a year since I've worn it, not that long, and I want to wear this more and more. This is actually a 10-year-old bottle, 2013 batch, and you can see the dent is not very big, and that's because at the time when I was wearing this the most, I wasn't spraying a ton. I would maybe spray 3 times at the most. I do spray a little bit more these days across the board, but habits change. Anyway, I'm so glad I still have this fragrance. I will never get rid of it. I've had several people approach me about buying it. No! Not gonna happen. This is a complete treasure in my collection. La Nuit de L'Homme from YSL. And what is my most worn designer fragrance? On one hand, I am utterly surprised by this, and on another hand, when I think back to myself when I first smelled it, I'm not surprised. I've worn this 38 times. However, it has been 3 years since I've worn it. When I first smelled this, I went to a Bloomingdale's. I smelled it in the store. I fell head over heels for this, and I immediately decided this is going to be my signature scent. This stuff is incredible. This was my first foray into the barbershop fougere genre. I remember taking home a sample from Bloomingdale's that day. I went through that sample in a matter of a few days, and I'm like, man, I need to get me a bottle. It was a little expensive, so I had to wait. I waited. I ended up finding one on eBay for a little bit under retail, picked that up, and this is the one that you'll see here. I've loved it ever since, but there's others in the genre that I've discovered since that have really caught my attention, and I find way more interesting and fun to wear. But I do think this is still a wonderful introduction to the genre, if it's still available. I think it is. From Margiela, we have At The Barbers. Yes, my most worn designer fragrance. I would not have guessed it's this, but because I was so head over heels about it when I first smelled it. That's what drew me to it. When I had to go get that bottle because I love that sample, I actually gave this a lot of wearing, and it did fizzle out as I explained. But I do think it's amazing. I'm so glad that this was my introduction to the genre, and if you have tried this, I think you understand how beautifully authentic it is. Even though it is simple, it really represents what it's meant to represent in a fantastic way. That is Margiela At The Barbers. Yes, I had so much fun filming this. I hope you enjoyed watching it, learning a little bit more about my journey and the fragrances I've worn and maybe not worn all that much recently. I want to know what you think of any of these. If you've tried them, I'm sure you have. Let me know down in the comments. There's going to be links to everything I talked about down in the description if for some reason you haven't tried some of these. Thank you so much for tuning in. Peace. I'll see you in the next one.